Imagine a world where promises, made in the heat of battle or the quiet of negotiation, held the fate of thousands. A world where two powerful leaders, separated by faith and culture, looked each other in the eye and sought peace. A period often defined by conflict, by clashes of swords and fervent belief. But what about the moments when the fighting stopped? When hope, however fragile, flickered for a brief, precious time. For centuries, waves of European crusaders journeyed to the Holy Land, driven by faith, ambition, and the desire to reclaim Jerusalem. They met fierce resistance from the Muslim defenders, led by equally devout and determined leaders. This wasn't just a clash of armies. It was a collision of worlds, beliefs, and immense human suffering. Yet, even amidst such profound division, there were attempts at peace. Treaties, agreements forged in desperation, sometimes even respect. But peace, in this volatile land, proved to be an elusive dream. Today, we delve into the heart of two such treaties. Agreements that, for a moment, promised an end to the bloodshed, but ultimately collapsed. We'll look at the famous truce between England's King Richard I, the Lionheart, and the legendary Muslim Sultan, Saladin. And then, a lesser-known but equally fascinating agreement, the treaty forged by Emperor Frederick II and Sultan al-Kamil. These are not just stories of kings and sultans. They are stories of people caught in the crossfire, of the heavy burden of leadership, and the fragile nature of peace. Our journey begins with Richard and Saladin, two titans of their age. Richard, a formidable warrior king, leading the Third Crusade after years of devastating losses for the Christian forces. And Saladin, the respected and revered leader who had recaptured Jerusalem, uniting much of the Muslim world against the invaders. Their conflict was personal, strategic, and deeply spiritual. Yet, surprisingly, there was also a profound mutual respect between them. After years of relentless warfare, particularly the brutal siege of Acre, both sides were exhausted. The Crusader forces, though victorious at Acre and later at Arsuf, had failed to recapture Jerusalem. Richard knew his resources were dwindling, and his own kingdom needed him. Saladin, too, faced internal pressures and a depleted army. The cost of endless war was becoming unbearable for everyone. Thus began the delicate dance of diplomacy. Richard and Saladin, though they never met in person, communicated through a series of trusted envoys. These negotiations were not simple. There was deep-seated mistrust, pride, and the weight of religious conviction on both sides. Yet, a common desire for an end to the immediate conflict pushed them forward. In September 1192, after months of intense negotiation, the Treaty of Jaffa was signed. Its terms were specific. A 3-year truce was declared. Christians would retain control of the coastal cities, from Tyre to Jaffa. Most importantly, Christian pilgrims would be granted free and safe access to Jerusalem and other holy sites, which would remain under Muslim control. For many, this was a bittersweet compromise. Jerusalem was not reclaimed, but the path to it was open. This treaty, despite its imperfections, was a testament to the extraordinary leadership of both Richard and Saladin. They prioritized an end to suffering over absolute victory, understanding the limits of their power and the needs of their people. For a brief period, the roads were safer, trade resumed, and a fragile sense of normalcy returned to the Holy Land. But peace, especially in such a contested land, is rarely absolute. The Treaty of Jaffa, born of necessity, carried the seeds of its own collapse. Its very foundation, a truce, not a lasting resolution, meant it was always temporary. The underlying issues, the deeply held religious claims to the land, remained unresolved. Both leaders, exhausted and unwell, would not live long after the treaty. Saladin died just months later, in March 1193. Richard, too, would return to Europe, never to see the Holy Land again, dying in 1199. With their strong leadership gone, the fragile peace they had brokered began to unravel. Local lords on both sides, with their own ambitions and grudges, found it harder to uphold the terms. The truce eventually expired, and without the commanding presence of Richard and Saladin, the old rivalries resurfaced. The desire for vengeance, the yearning for Jerusalem, the strategic importance of the land, all conspired to reignite the conflict. The collapse wasn't a sudden explosion, but a slow, creeping decay. As small violations escalated, trust eroded, and the vision of peace faded. Decades later, another remarkable attempt at peace unfolded. This time, between a most unlikely pair, Frederick II, the Holy Roman Emperor, a brilliant but controversial ruler, and al-Kamil, the Sultan of Egypt, Saladin's nephew and a pragmatic leader. This was the Sixth Crusade, a unique chapter where diplomacy, not direct warfare, took center stage. Frederick II was an enigma. Excommunicated by the Pope, fluent in Arabic and deeply interested in Muslim culture, he approached the Holy Land not as a traditional crusader intent on conquest, but as a negotiator. He understood that a lasting peace might be achieved through dialogue, not just through the sword. Al-Kamil, too, was a shrewd politician. He faced internal threats from his own relatives and understood the potential for a new crusade to destabilize his rule. He saw in Frederick an opportunity, a chance to secure his own position and avoid another costly war, even if it meant making concessions. In 1229, Frederick and al-Kamil reached an agreement in Jaffa. It was astonishing. Jerusalem, Bethlehem, and Nazareth were ceded to the Christians, along with a corridor to the coast. The Muslims would retain control of the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Critically, Frederick promised not to attack any Muslim territories. This was a diplomatic coup, achieving through negotiation what others had failed to do through years of bloody conflict. The treaty brought a unique, almost surreal peace. For a decade, Christians once again held Jerusalem. But this peace was deeply unpopular with many. The Pope was furious that an excommunicated emperor had negotiated the Holy City. Many devout Muslims were outraged that al-Kamil had surrendered sacred ground. And Crusader lords, always vying for power, resented Frederick's triumph. The very success of the treaty became its undoing. It was a peace imposed from above, not fully embraced by the people on the ground. The religious passion that fueled the Crusades was too powerful to be simply set aside by political maneuvering. The long-standing grievances, the deep emotional ties to the land, could not be legislated away. Within years of al-Kamil's death in 1238, the political landscape shifted dramatically. His successors, under immense pressure, had little incentive to uphold a treaty that was seen as a betrayal. The Christian lords in Jerusalem, rather than uniting, descended into infighting, making them vulnerable. In 1244, Muslim forces decisively retook Jerusalem. The peace, once so carefully constructed, shattered. The collapse of these treaties reminds us of a profound truth. Peace is not merely the absence of war. It requires sustained effort, genuine buy-in from all sides, and a willingness to address the root causes of conflict. When these elements are absent, even the most carefully crafted agreements can unravel. The Crusades and their failed treaties stand as a powerful testament to the enduring human struggle for peace in a world often consumed by division. They remind us that while leaders can forge agreements, true, lasting peace must be built on understanding, respect, and a shared vision that transcends the boundaries of faith and nation. The echoes of those broken promises still whisper through the ancient stones, urging us to learn from the past and to strive, always, for a more lasting harmony.